Coming up on today's Locked On Mavs, let's do a little Black Friday shopping across the league. Who are some bargain deals that Dallas could go after and not pay the biggest price to get, but somebody that can make a big difference on this current Mavs team on today's Locked On Mavs.
Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
The Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Welcome to Locked On Mavs. This is one of your co-hosts, Isaac Harris, contributor at Mavs.com, Studio 41, Corner 3 on 97.1 The Freak. And today, I'm not joined by Nick because Nick is enjoying family at Thanksgiving. And I'm going to talk about some Black Friday shopping because, I'm not going through all the deals at the hangar and stuff right now, at the Dallas Mavs shop. But I am going to talk about some bargain deals across the league. Who are some players that Dallas could try to target on the trade market over the coming weeks and try to catch a good deal, but somebody that can make a difference on this team? This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you know the drill. Anything below, but actually, I have a question for you. If the Mavericks could trade for anybody right now, not having to use their first round picks, let me put that caveat on there. Who would you want them to target? Who is a realistic player that you're like, hey, it's not a swing for the fences type player because that's going to require every asset you have, all the first you can trade and all of that. I'm not talking about that because when you go out shopping on Black Friday, you're not going out to you're looking for deals. You're looking for the best prices, something that you could buy at a cheap cost, but you're like, man, I'm going to get the best bang for my buck on this. It's probably a weird saying, but I don't know. I've heard that saying my entire life. I'm going to use it again. So, who's a player? Leave it in the comments below on YouTube. Drop a player's name that you would want Dallas to trade for, but not give up their first round picks. Be realistic. Come on. Which I know this is kind of hard asking. Don't write Steph Curry. Say, hey, that's a good one. I don't think we'll have to give up a first. Just put Bertans and Tim in there and we get Steph. You guys know the drill, or at least I hope you do. Real quick before we get into some trade stuff. Now that we're like a day removed from that Nuggets game, are you more frustrated or less? Because typically I try to just shut the door on things. I'm like, all right, let's move on. Boston's coming up Wednesday, and I haven't got to move on from this one. This one's so frustrating to me. I didn't get to talk about. I recorded last night before the Christian Wood quote came out. Tim McMahon tweeted it out that he talked to Christian Wood after the game and said, remember, Christian Wood played 17 minutes in that game and didn't take a ton of shots, 5 points in the game. Wood said, told McMahon, I would love to play more. I've voiced that several times, but I just play my role. Wood obviously wants to play more. Him saying on record there that, hey, I've voiced that many times. I'm sure he has. I'm sure him and his representation has voiced that several times about how he should be playing more. And you kind of don't blame him in a sense of wanting to play more. I think every player in the league would want to play more. But no, that's just obviously a situation I have been watching for a while, and I will continue to watch as this moves forward. One of the other sentiments that came out that Nick and I were DMing a little bit about today, but is this looking at the roster and saying, man, we need this player. If we would have had this player, we would have beaten Denver. We would have, looking at kind of now, I agree that does this roster, how it currently looks right now, is this roster going to take you to the finals? I do not believe that. this talent, this roster needs trying to be nice with the words, or it's a little bit of upgrading at certain spots. That's the best way to say it, but the whole notion of, hey, I'm just going to blame just the lack of talent on this roster for that Nuggets loss. I'm not here for that, because they should win games like that. This isn't about, man, they shouldn't have had to have X, Y, and Z on the roster whenever you're playing a Nuggets team that's missing Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Aaron Gordon. Like, you should beat that team. You have enough talent to beat that team. So I actually think coaching should be held a little bit more accountable for loses like this, because from a fan base, from media and all of that. So anyway, that's my notion. That's my way of saying it. Of the more and more I've looked at it, it's just like, yeah, there's no excuse for them to lose a game like that. So I think you have to look in the mirror, and Jason Kidd did that. And you have to look in the mirror if you're Jason Kidd. That's what I was finished my sentence there, and it sounds like he did. So there you go. Let's see what happens with the Celtics coming up on Wednesday night, the day before Thanksgiving. Let's see if the Mavericks can bounce back for a win. So let's get into shopping around the league. How many of you actually enjoy Black Friday shopping, like in real life, like not trade machine? I don't really enjoy it that much. I don't enjoy big crowds, so I'm like, hey, my wife, you can go out and do the shopping. Go for it. Now, the internet world is just spoiling everyone, because I don't know about you guys, but I remember as like a kid or high school or something, man, we had to go up certain time, camp out, wait for this new gaming system to come out or whatever it is. And yeah, those were the days for or brand new TV. But now it's just like, all right, cool. Like I'll check Amazon maybe, and then just kind of go from there. But hats off to you guys who are fighting the crowds, and much thoughts and prayers to everyone listening to this working in retail. My hat is tipped to you. I worked in retail for a long time during my college years, and I will always respect you guys who work retail during the holidays. All right, let's do this. Let's look around the league. Let's look at some names. I'm just going to say real quick, the third segment of this podcast, I'm going to talk about one big trade, an actual trade, a 3-team trade that I could see Dallas like entertaining, and just go from there. And both the teams, I'll kind of break that whole trade down in the third segment. But let's talk about some names off the top. So the whole premise of this, like I was saying, is who are some names across the league that their trade value is down, but if they got to Dallas, it's a little bit different than what we did the other day. The other day, Nick was operating with the premise of who's a player that they could trade for, and then that player breaks out in Dallas like an OG Anunoby. This isn't that. This is a player. I'm looking at players across the league that I'm saying, all right, Dallas could trade for one of these players, and it's kind of considered a buy low, and it doesn't require a first-round pick from Dallas. So that's kind of what I was operating under, and it's kind of hard here and there, because I also want difference makers. Like, I could look on here and be like, you know what? I think they could get Kim Birch for not a first. Yes, they could probably get Kim Birch without giving up a first. But is he going to really change the whole dynamic of this team? I don't think so. And I don't think all of these guys are pushing them to the finals, but I think some of these names could at least be in the rotation and have an impact on the team. So with that being said, man, I just teased that really hard, and y'all are going to hate me now. Let's do a quick break, and then we'll be right back to throw some names at you. This podcast is brought to you by Turo. I said this not too long ago, but for my birthday a few weeks ago, my wife surprised me. She's like, hey, I got you something. It's super random, but we pulled up into this driveway of a condo. This lady walked out, and she's like, my wife looked at me and said, I rented you a Tesla for the day. I'm like, how do you even rent a Tesla for the day? And she's like, I did it through this app, through this company called Turo. It's the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the US, UK, Canada, and coming soon to Australia. Shout out to Kane. Book a spacious SUV or a minivan for a family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event or a birthday. Shout out to me. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. Go to Turo.com for all of the fun stuff if you want, for the largest car sharing marketplace. There you go. What a great ending to an ad. All right. I'm back. Let's do this. Let's talk about some names. So smaller names are off the top. I think you could probably call up Detroit right now and say, hey, I'm interested in Nerlens Noel, Alec Burks. And I don't think they're hanging up the phone. Tough season. I was really high on Detroit. I say really high. I thought they was going to be fighting for a play-in spot. Cade Cunningham is hurt. Looks like he's going to be out for a while. And they're just not good defensively. But you know what? Just tank for Wemby. Try to pair old Victor there with Cade, and you got something special in the East for a very long time. So Nerlens, Alec Burks, vets on a Detroit team that they're probably going to be just giving those guys away at some point this season or before February. I think both of those guys could have a role, especially if Dallas makes some other moves and they're in need of a center. The irony of Luka playing like good basketball and bringing out the best of Nerlens Noel in Dallas would just be hilarious. And it would be kind of fun because on paper, Nerlens would actually fit well with Luka. So anyway, not big difference makers. I got to take a drink because my throat's getting scratchy. So bear with me. You can just watch me. If you're on YouTube, you can just watch me take a drink right now. Let's do this. I don't know what's going on with Robert Covington for the Clippers. It feels like he's the odd man out. We've talked about him, it feels like a million times when it comes to potential Mavericks targets. But he is a wing that I'm like, you know what? Should they make the call? We can always add another wing to the rotation. But if he's not playing, I shouldn't say that. I was saying if he's not playing for the Clippers, then should we be interested? The Clippers are a really deep team. So maybe. We have talked about the Westbrook situation a million times, literally a million times. There are scenarios that if I'm Dallas, like one, no team receiving a Westbrook contract is going to be giving up any type of first round pick. So there you go. That's why I threw it in there. And I do think there's some scenarios in which Dallas could actually, no, I'm just taking that off. Sorry. Because I'm not going to talk myself into the basketball wise and do the whole spill. Bring Russ here, bring him off the bench. And that would be if they traded for Westbrook, it would be probably a money thing, getting off long-term money on your books. And then there's no way on earth I would be sitting there trying to convince myself of any expectations of Westbrook. Man, if he bought into the 6-man role on this team, he'd just kill it. Cool. I'm just not going to talk myself into it. Whatever we've got from Westbrook, if that case played or happens, it would just be like icing on the cake. Let's talk about Mike Conley real quick. Utah's in this super weird spot. I didn't think they were going to be good along with everybody else in the world. They're pretty good right now. Really good right now. Lauri Markkanen's having a big time year. Mike Conley avoided this kind of injury scare the other day, but seems like he's going to be fine. He is due around $20 million this year. He has another like 20 next year. So he's guaranteed around this like 20 mark this year and next year. There's no option. There's no non-guarantee or anything on the next year spot of that. He's 35. He looked cooked in the playoffs. You look at his 3-point percentage right now, and it's like, all right, not too bad. Shooting 39% from three, or roughly 5 threes a game right now in the 2022-23 season. Last year, he shot 41%. Year before that, 41%. Year before that, 37%. He's been a pretty dang good 3-point shooter his entire career, but he is older. We know this. So I put him on there because, one, I don't think he's kind of in the spot of like, I think Utah would love to get a first-round pick for him. I think if they traded Clarkson right now, they would get a first-round pick, especially close to the deadline. If they trade Mike Conley right now, you're not getting a first-round pick from Mike Conley. And that's where I think the role and value of what Conley could bring to Dallas coming off the bench, I think could be really valuable to them. I just don't know what that trade package looks like, because Utah's going to look at it and saying, all right, if you're not giving me a first round pick that I don't want to take on longer term money than what we're, due to pay Conley next year. So I've seen some people throw out like, hey, Bertans for Conley. It's like, they're not going to pay another year, an extra year of Bertans, unless you throw some draft compensation on top of that. I don't know if second round picks are worth, enough to do that. So I don't know what the exact deal is for that. And unless you start getting into the expiring contracts of Dwight Powell, Christian Wood, and all that. And I'm sorry, I'm just not giving Christian Wood up in a deal for Mike Conley. Yeah, I'm just not. I'm all here for the third ball handler. I think Mike Conley as the third ball handler creator off the bench would play a good role as a vet, all of that. That's why I put him on this list, because I think it would be a buy low type of player that could have a good impact on this team. Let's bring up these three shooting guards real quick, because I don't think. Actually, I know the other two. Evan Fournier, Duncan Robinson. You're not having to give up a first round pick for those guys. The only question you're asking is, if you're the Mavericks, do you want to pay one of those two players and Tim Hardaway at the same time? Because it's a little Spider-Man meme-ish with Evan Fournier and Tim Hardaway pointing at each other saying, hey, I'm a two guard. I like to jack up shots. No, I'm a two guard and I like to jack up shots. Both shoot it well from the outside. So having both of them on the same team, it would be weird. Duncan Robinson, I would say, is a little bit different than those other two guys, because I think the other two guys can create, better than Duncan can. But both those dudes have long-term money on the books. And that's the thing of like, yeah, it's not going to give up. You're not going to have to give up a first to get one of them, but dang, do you want to eat up your cap? Is it worth it? And yeah, you could entertain like Tim swaps for that, but it's like, yeah, I'm sure. Put in the comments, like, who's better, Evan Fournier or Tim Hardaway Jr.? Who's better, Tim Hardaway or Duncan Robinson? Like, I would still take Tim over Duncan Robinson probably. So I don't. That's the type of stuff that I don't think it would take a first, but I'm not. I don't know if they even go in this category, kind of like, I guess you could, because I guess you could pay it like a cheaper cost for it, Evan Fournier, and then he comes into Dallas and shoots like 43% from three, and you're like, wow, we got him for almost free, but we actually took on his money. Eric Gordon is really intriguing to me, just for the fact that there is a world that he could cost a little bit more than those other two guys, because he has a shorter term deal, and it could be one of those things where Houston carries him until the trade deadline. And we all know deadlines make deals. And once you get closer to the deadline, that's when all these teams like the Jazz and the Rockets and the Pistons of the world are like, all right, well, we have this coveted asset that a lot of you playoff teams want. Give us a first round pick if you really want him. And I could see them doing that with Eric Gordon. I got to look at his 3-point percentage this year. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's awesome. Don't quote me on that, even though I know you will. Actually, look it up. Prove me wrong. So I'm not the biggest fan. I think if we just lump Conley into some of those other guys, I think Conley's one of those dudes where I'm still like, there's a scenario in which I think we could buy low on Mike Conley and not have to give a first round pick. And I'd be really interested in getting him. Let's talk about Derrick Rose for a second. Gotten multiple tweets, got some DMs just asking me, hey, what do you think about Derrick Rose as a third ball handler off the bench? Sure. There you go. Point blank. I mean, he's 34, a vet, respected vet around the league, makes $14.5 million this year. His contract for next year is not fully guaranteed. So, it's one of those non-guaranteed things. I mean, like a lot of things, it depends on the price. But if we're talking about guys that I think that, it's not going to cost a first round pick, I don't think he's playing well enough to warrant a first round pick. You look at some of his stats this year, they're pretty good, across the board. It's like, all right, he's not playing. I say pretty good relative. He's not playing at, all-star level. He doesn't look washed. So, if you're New York, what are you wanting back? Are you wanting a win now type of player? Do you care about eating into your future cap space and all of that? Because obviously they can carry Derrick Rose the rest of the year and then not guarantee, most of that contract for next year. But yeah, I'd be down. I think he would fit on this team. I think he would be a good third ball handler off the bench. And if you're going to get him for free, basically, then I think it's a pretty solid deal if it's Dallas wanting to take that swing and saying, hey, we want to upgrade that spot. There you go. There's my Derrick Rose stuff. I'm not, I'm not trying to fly up to New York and talk to Leon Rose, every day about Derrick Rose. But sure. If they make the deal, I'm not I guess we'll do emergency pod. Sure, we would do it because it's hashtag content. Let's take a quick break, and then I'll tell you one guy that I think they should be calling about right now that's having not the best of seasons, and then I'll get to my trade in the third segment. This podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. Any of you guys out there own a small business, then it's kind of hard to find some solid, good help. You want to be 100% certain that you have the access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. So go to LinkedIn Jobs, add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNBA. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNBA, all one word, to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's do this. Another guy that I was wanting to get to a little bit, Alex Caruso. So you're like, hey, why would Chicago trade him? Why would Chicago do anything right? I don't know what Chicago is. Lonzo's been hurt for a lot of the season. I don't know when he's coming back. They did the whole, we're going to sign Goran Dragic and promise him 25 minutes a night. They have Alex Caruso. They have Zach LaVine. They have DeMar DeRozan. They have Io, who I really like. Like, they have a ton of guards on their team. You look at Caruso, he's 28 years old. He is due $9 million this year. He's 9.4 next year, and then 9.8 after that. So what if they looked at it and said, hey, we have too many guards. Lonzo's going to be coming back at some point. Even if we wanted to trade Lonzo, his value isn't very good right now. Caruso would fit really dang good on this team because not only could he be the third playmaker, creator, whatever you want to say for that off the bench, but he's a really good defender. And I would just really like his fit on this team. I think it would be an underrated move for Dallas. And I want to believe, and I know, tell me I'm wrong. I know you'll tell me in the comments that I'm wrong. I want to believe that they could possibly get him without giving up a first round pick. Now, what's the cost of that? If you're a Mavs fan, listen to this. There's probably not many people. The demographic of people listening to this that's not Mavs fans, I would say, pretty slim. Would you trade Maxey straight up for Caruso? Would you trade Josh Green? Would you trade fill in the blank, for Caruso? Would it be would Chicago do something like Dwight Powell in a couple of seconds if they wanted some front court help behind Vooch and they weren't in love with the Andre Drummond experience? I don't know. I'm just throwing out stuff. I'm throwing out random salary ranges there for that Caruso $9 to $10 million. I just know Caruso would fit really well on this team. And man, I think if they bought low, if his value was lower and they're looking at it, it's like, man, I don't know how he's gonna age over the next few years. If they just wanted to swap him out for another rotation piece, then I'd be really interested. I think he'd make a difference in Dallas. All right, let's talk about this. Actually, man, I didn't even get to some of these younger guys. Let me just throw these names out real quick and then I'll get to the trade. 3 young guys that I think Dallas could buy, air quote, buy low on: Mo Bamba, PJ Washington, and dang, I just did the whole Chicago rotation there. I didn't even mention Kobe White. Somebody tweeted at me today and said, Man, why are you on Kobe White so much? I'm paraphrasing a little bit here. And they posted his 3-point percentage right now before during the season. And yeah, it's not great. You know, he's played in 8 games this season. He's shooting 29% from 3. Hey, I get it. As a cold tweet, I know I haven't been all on board about Kobe White coming to Dallas. I've just mentioned him as a possibility because I think he is a super buy low player that Chicago would get rid of. But also, last year he attempted almost 6 threes a game. And he shot 39% from 3. Pretty dang good. Year before that, he attempted 6.6 threes a game, 36% from 3. Not too bad. So I want to say that I would take the overall portion. Sure. Since we're Thanksgiving week, we're talking about portions. The overall portion of his 3-point percentage and say, I think I'll believe in that a little bit more than the 8 games that he's played in this year, shooting 29% from 3. He's a bigger point guard. I want to say he's, better defender than what we would have right now coming off the bench in that spot as a 6'5" guard. You'd be taking a little bit of swing of like, hey, let's just like figure him out. You see if he fits, go from there. And I don't think it costs a first round pick. So I'd be really interested in the swing of Kobe White. I obviously would want somebody better because I think there are definitely some better options out there. But if it came down to it and it's like, hey, it's a very buy low trade, then sure. Mo Bamba, what's his future in Orlando? But is it literally just Bol and that's it right now? Bol, Wendell Carter Jr. What's his future? And then I've always been a big PJ Washington fan. I say big, but I have some stock on the island of PJ Washington coming out of the draft out of Kentucky. And I like him. Both him and Bama are still just 24. Bama obviously has an extension that he signed or a new contract. PJ Washington needs a new extension coming up at some point. So just some interesting younger guys that's like, hey, if they bought low, could they reach the next level of their career in Dallas? All right, let's talk about this trade real quick. Here you go. 3-team trade. D'Angelo Russell to the Mavs. Terry Rozier, Kelly Oubre to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Christian Wood, Tim Hardaway to the Charlotte Hornets. So Isaac, why? Who's the first team that says no to that? Once again, let me say it again. Christian Wood, Tim Hardaway to Charlotte Hornets. This is a fake trade, by the way. Don't clip this. Christian Wood, Tim Hardaway to the Hornets. Terry Rozier, Kelly Oubre to the Timberwolves, and D'Angelo Russell to the Mavs. Let's do the Mavs angle real quick. Slight hesitation with this deal. I'm not saying I would do this deal. I'm just saying, if this deal happened tomorrow, if Shams or Woj tweeted this tomorrow and said, hey, blockbuster trade, here's a 3-team trade going down, swapping out some pieces here and there, interchanging some pieces, I would at least get it if I'm covering the Mavs. I mean, okay, I get this. I see what Dallas is doing. Say, hey, why would Dallas do this? Why would they swap out Tim Hardaway Jr. and Christian Wood for one offensive player and D'Angelo Russell? Well, one, you get your solidified third ball handler at that spot. Do you want to start D'Angelo Russell, move Dinwiddie back to the bench, or bring Russell off the bench as this 6-man Jordan Clarkson type of role? You could do that. That's one way to look at it. You have your solidified guy. You have 3 ball handlers on the team. Another way you could look at it and say, hey, you get off the long-term money of Tim Hardaway Jr. at this point, right? Like D'Angelo Russell is an expiring $30 million contract. So you instantly open up cap space going into next year. The other angle to this is Christian Wood just played 17 minutes. What's his future on this team? Because if the ship doesn't right soon, do you think Christian Wood's going to resign here next year? Yeah. So if you think Christian Wood is not a part of your future plans, then that's another part of this trade too of why you could swap him. Yeah. Why would Minnesota do this? Well, if you haven't noticed, Minnesota hasn't looked the best this season when you look at the fits with the roster. I think it's more of the bigs problem, but they could go the point guard route and say, all right, could we turn D'Angelo Russell into 2 pieces, get a new point guard in here to help run the team and maybe a little bit better defender? That's enter Terry Rozier. You know how much I love Terry Rozier. Maybe Rozier would be a better fit for them, running the offense, getting some other guys. I know he's a bucket getter like D'Angelo Russell, but he's a better defender. And maybe they need that more at the point guard spot. They also add the expiring contract of Kelly Oubre to the rotation. You're like, all right, you get another body to play on the wing. Charlotte Hornets, there's also the D'Angelo Russell expiring contract conversation for Minnesota. If they don't think that they're going to resign him, maybe it inspires them to look around for a trade deal too. Say, hey, why would the Charlotte Hornets trade Terry Rozier and Kelly Oubre for Tim Hardaway and Christian Wood? Well, one, they could take the swing on Christian Wood and say, all right, we're not a great team this year. Let's give Christian Wood a lot of reps. Let's have him start at center. Let's do this thing. Like, let's feed him. And who knows? He could be our future center on the team. And then you're basically swapping out Terry Rozier and Tim Hardaway. I don't really have a big case for that outside of, I think Tim's contract's maybe a year shorter, but you get a great locker room presence, a vet, a shooting guard to play alongside LaMelo and those guys. So there you go. Not a perfect trade. I don't know who says no first, because I honestly see kind of the pros and cons of both sides. The con for Dallas would be, man, you're consolidating. Sometimes your offense looks stagnant. Now you're consolidating two offensive guys off your bench into one. And I think if Dallas did a trade like this, I would say, all right, do we got another trade under our belt to help the rotation just a little bit? But the pro of it would be you do add a dynamic scorer in D'Angelo Russell to where, like, all right, now we go back to having the three creators, ball handlers, and it's a guy that's on an expiring contract. So there you go. That was a rapid fire. I barely have a voice now at this point. Yeah, let's hop back on here tomorrow. Here's the thing. You made it to the end of the pod. Shoot a question. I think tomorrow I'll do a classic mailbag with Nick out with family. I'll do a classic mailbag, try to answer some of your questions. I'll pop a question on Twitter, but if you want to shoot me a DM on Twitter, you want to leave a question in the comments, I'll try to get a big running list of questions going. If you want to do outside of basketball, you can do outside of basketball too. I know some of you are dying for my TV show takes. That's a joke. A lot of you hate my TV show takes. But yeah, send me stuff and programming notes. We'll have a pod tomorrow, which is, yes, the day of the Boston Celtics game. We'll have a post-game pod after the Celtics game that will come out Wednesday night / Thursday morning as everyone's cooking their food for Thursday. And then there'll be no show on Friday. Sorry, I'm not going to record on Thanksgiving Day. I think you will survive, and you can listen to this podcast, share it with somebody because it's Black Friday. A lot of you guys will be shopping, but thanks for listening to Locked On Mavs. And yeah, subscribe, share. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out. Boom.